to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Would you please bow your head? Dear God, thank you for bringing us all here tonight. We ask that you give this council the wisdom, the guidance to do the right thing for the city of Newman. In this we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bob. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Davis. Hutchins.
Present.
Candia. Present. Martina. Mayor Pro Tem Martina.
Present.
Mayor Caton.
Present. Thank you. Item 5, declaration of conflicts of interest. See, now we go to item 6, ceremonial matters. Excuse me. Presentation by stand call regarding sustainable community strategies. Carlos.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Always a pleasure. Carlos Shamzan, I'm the executive director for the Stanislaus Council of Governments. Always a pleasure to come before the Newman City Council. We have a very brief exercise today, but before I do that, just wanted, as a matter of introduction, to let you know that the Stanislaus Council of Governments is the federally mandated metropolitan planning organization and state-mandated regional transportation planning agency. We have a 16-member board, of which we're very pleased to have Mayor Caton as one of our members, and also Supervisor DeMartini as one of our policy board members. One of our responsibilities is to produce a regional transportation plan. This regional transportation plan is different because of some state legislation requiring us to do land use planning with transportation planning. And I won't go into the details because the brief presentation before the little clicker exercise, and that's what we're passing out here, Kendall Flint, our consultant, will explain a little of why we're doing what we're doing. Very simply, the merging of land use planning and transportation planning is in the event of being able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the impact of greenhouse gas emissions. There's a saying that a trip doesn't begin on a road, it begins in a home and goes to a place of employment or a school or even a city council meeting. And so it's very important that we merge the transportation planning and land use planning. All right. So with that, I'm going to also acknowledge that we have Rosa Park from our StanCog staff with us, and now I'm going to introduce Kendall Flint from our consultant team to run you through this exercise. Again, very pleased to be here.
And I'm going to quickly reset the resolution on this computer so that this will. Do you know I needed to set that too for this? You don't have to whisper.
You know what? I don't know.
Okay, let's see. Appearance and preparation. Display.
Yeah, there you
Okay. Okay. What you got? You get Joy. Let's try one other thing here.
Well, it's showing on the screen, so I know it's working.
Yeah.
These screens here.
Oh, is it showing there?
Yeah, so we
Okay.
just need to try another setting and keep continuing. It's probably down there, so we can-
Anybody gonna hum some good music while we try this? Da 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 da.
Only if I can get the win the money.
Okay. Let's get one more. It's a good thing we're not trying to watch a ball game. My husband would be screaming at that point. Still not getting it. Let's go. One of
Yeah,
these
see, it's
is.
showing up on the other monitors though, so I know it's putting.
Okay. I'm gonna give it one more shot and then.
Let me try something in between. Let's try to do. There you go, click in between these two.
We've hit all three of those.
Yeah, is there a way we can go halfway in between? or does it
No,
let you
they're
just click?
sets.
Yeah, then no, it's gonna show up on the screen.
Okay, I'm gonna try one more. If it doesn't do that one, then we'll just go with the. I mean, PowerPoint's kind of boring to watch anyway, so you'll just have to trust me when I'm telling you.
Everybody up on the dais.
And the areas the dais can see it. Mhm. Nope, revert. Try one other thing here. Yeah. Okay, well, this is what they teach you in PR school, adapt or die. So let me just start at the top here and let you know, first of all, what we're here talking about tonight. I'm assuming that some of the younger people here, you're here for soccer fields, right? Right? Okay. We're going to go through this pretty quickly, so we'll be able to get to all the other things tonight. But I'm really glad you're here because one of the things that we're trying to do with this Stancog Valley Vision program is to get as many people in the public involved as possible from all over the county. And what Valley Vision Stanislaus really is, it's an umbrella document that is going to take a look at the long-range transportation plan for the county. And when we talk about long-range transportation plan, what we're really looking at is how the county and all the various jurisdictions are going to spend state and federal money on improvements. That could be bus service, it could be new rail service, it could be improvements in roads, putting in bicycle paths, or places where you might be able to, go walking and have lovely paseos. It takes all types of investments to make a whole plan work. Now, what's interesting about this particular plan, well, it's interesting to the planners, is it goes out for 28 years. So some of you kids who are here in the audience, you'll be really old, have houses, have your own kids, and this stuff will just then be getting done. So it moves at a pretty slow pace, but you have to plan for it on a long-range effort. Now, one of the things that happens with the plan, which is a little different this time, we have a fiscally constrained plan, which means we can only talk about the types of investments that we can actually afford to do in those next 25, 30 years. Now, a couple of years ago, there was a referendum, or a ballot measure to get a sales tax passed in the county, and it didn't pass. And because of that, this particular plan has less money in it than the last one, which means that the Stancog board and all the various jurisdictions are going to have less money to spend, and sadly, there's not going to be fewer projects that want to be funded. So we're still looking at ways to be creative about how we're going to do that. The other part that the plan has to do, of course, is preserve and protect how we get around today. We want to make sure that those roadways and connections that are connecting our communities and connecting our cities are still there. As Carlos mentioned, this particular plan for Valley Vision also takes into account land use decisions. And that's really basically taking a look at where people live and work and play and making sure that transportation options are available to them to get them to move around the county in an efficient manner. And also we're looking at, of course, housing with that. Where are people going to live? What types of housing are they going to have? This is all part of the overall plan. So does everybody have a clicker? Okay. So last thing I forgot to mention on this, it is a requirement of state law. There is, in some places, there's not a lot of love for these big planning documents because they involve a lot of what we call environmental review and consultants like me and people like that. And anyway, this particular plan, once it's completed, makes it possible for the county and all the jurisdictions to get access to that money so that those different types of projects and programs we all want to see can happen. So where we are in the process right now is we're really doing a massive outreach program where we're going to each of the individual cities as well as the county. We're talking to Rotaries, we're talking to the Farm Bureau, folks that provide services for seniors, for people that are working in housing. We're looking at a variety of different types of topics to make sure that everybody gets involved. After that's completed, which will be in the next couple of weeks, we start working on what's called the alternative scenarios, where we're going to have 4 different packages that will come back to you and have you take a look at. Those will be sort of how we're going to spend the money, how we're going to allocate resources. Will it be more in transit, less in transportation? And people will be able to give us their opinions on that. So they will then come up with a preferred alternative, which is the plan itself. There'll be a little bit more paperwork and environmental review. It'll go through the summer, and then in the fall, the Stancog board will have an opportunity to approve or adopt that particular plan. I'm going to ask a couple questions now with the little clickers. The clickers, by the way, do you no good outside of this room, so please do not try to run off with them. I see we have law enforcement with us tonight. I'm not sure if there's anything on the books for that, but you'd help us run them down, right? Of course. Okay, right. It's a group effort
we have
here.
to watch.
So the first question I'm going to ask you, and this is pretty simple, first question, and if you're watching at home, by the way, you can always go on our website, which is www.valleyvisionstanislaus.com, and participate in any one of our surveys there online or get more information about the process itself, and I'll talk more about that later. But first of all, tonight, and just in general, what form of transportation do you use most often? So when you're going to go somewhere, how do you normally get there? If you drive alone, hit number 1. Those of you under 16, you are not allowed to hit number 1. Just so we're clear. Okay. If you carpool, number 2. If you take a motorcycle, number 3. If you take a local bus, 4. If you are on a regional bus, number 5. If you bicycle to places, that'll be number 6. And if you walk or run to places where you need to get, number 7. So everybody has an opportunity to click in on that. And everybody gets to vote on this, staff, news, everyone has a vote. And you can only have one vote on it. So what's the one you use most often? We're going to get to multiple choice in a moment. We'll have multiple ones you can weigh in on. Okay, so it looks like we've got everybody clicked in on there. Okay, the answer in this room tonight, 19, the majority of you drove alone, which is kind of sad for a transportation plan, but I know I drove alone too. Did you two carpool tonight, Rosa? No? All right. Then we had 2 carpools. Who carpooled most of the time? Yay for carpools. Okay. And who said that they bicycle to most of the places they go? Okay. I've got a 0 bike. Or is that walk run? 1, 2. Well, anyway. One of the things the plan's going to look at is investments in those particular areas and how to get people out of their cars and see what they can do. Next question. Pretty easy. How would you rate the overall quality of life in the region? Overall quality of life. This is everything from the quality of housing to how you get around, air quality, everything. If you think it's excellent, hit number 1. If you think it's good, hit number 2. Fair, number 3. Poor, number 4. And 5, very poor. So which one of those do you think is most accurate? 1 excellent, 2 good, 3 fair, 4 poor, 5 very poor. It looks like we've got just about everybody weighed in.
Carter's a suggestion, perhaps we could trim this and at least if this is some of it.
Well, let's see. There's a bit of a...
There's 5 councilmen, not 5.
Council can see this, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The only problem with that is I can't see it. And if I can't see it, we don't get to move on with the show. And the kids don't get to talk about the soccer fields. Yeah.
She talks
But
pretty
I'm
loud.
pretty loud. I'll tell you on this one. Okay, so overall, we had 5 people that said excellent, 8 good, 8 fair, and 2 poor. I'm just curious, who said poor? Poor quality of life. Poor quality of life. Anybody wants to admit to that? No one's going to admit to that. Okay. Well, I'll try not to put. Who said excellent? Excellent. Okay. What do you think is excellent about the quality of life?
All
here?
you have to do is live someplace else and then come to Newman and you'll know that it's excellent.
Well, okay. How long have you lived here?
How long?
So curiosity.
22 years.
So you know you've lived other places, and okay.
I've been a lot of places.
There you have it. Well, you guys have actually had a much brighter outlook than some of the other cities that we've talked to the last couple of weeks. We've actually been seeing a lot of in the middle of the good and fair. And when people have said that, their big concerns have been congestion on the roadways and lack of economic opportunities. So they're concerned about jobs, and they're concerned about the ability to have high-paying jobs in the county at this particular time. Now we're going to talk next about priorities. This is a 2-stepper. The first part is basically priorities in the room tonight. The second part we're going to talk about is sort of what your future plans are. Now, when we talk about priorities, and we're talking about transportation, it's like, where do you want to see most of the investment going? For some people, that's roadways. In talking with folks from Patterson as an example, there was a lot of love for east-west movement, the ability to get between 99 and the 5 at various parts of the county. In other places, people really were interested in bicycle and pedestrian opportunities, the ability to ride a bike to school, to a shopping center, to grocery stores, to work. A lot of seniors have been telling us that they have concerns about need for more transit services, the ability to get on a bus and have it be there on a frequent basis to get you from point A to point B and be affordable. And then across the county, we've been hearing a lot of concern about land use and the ability to preserve open space and farmland. And I can tell you today I spent time over in, where was I? I was everywhere. I was over in Waterford and then up in Oakdale and then cut across to be at this meeting. Beautiful country you have out here and just some gorgeous places to be. So clearly that's part of the character of this area. This next question I want to ask you, you get to have 3 answers. So whatever the last 3 things you put in on the keypad, that's going to be what you're voting on. Which of these is most important to you? These are the things that when we put together the plan, what are the most important things to you? Number 1, expanding public transit. Number 2, investing in new transit services. This would be like a light rail or a whole new bus line that doesn't even exist now. 3, expanding or widening the existing roadways. And that would be, either 132 or a road here in town. It means you're taking something that's already built and making it bigger and more capacity. 4, maintaining the existing roadways. That's fixing potholes, making sure that the road is safe to travel for both cars and vehicles and goods movement. 5, invest in new roadways. Some folks want to see a new road or a new connector in there. 6, invest in operational improvements. Operational improvements are things like timing of street lights. When you sit at a light and you see all the ones are red and they're all green, makes you move faster getting on and off of freeway on-ramps. Or 7, invest in non-motorized improvements. And this would be, again, like bike trails or pedestrian walkways, that sort of thing. So 1, expand public transit. 2, invest in new transit. 3, expand or widen existing roadways. 4, maintain existing roadways. 5, invest in new roadways. 6, invest in operational improvements. And 7, invest in non-motorized improvements. It looks like just about everybody has clicked in. All right, let's see what we had to say here. Okay, so in this room, the most love is for maintaining existing roadways. That's by 17. That means we had 17 clicks of people who are here. After that would be expanding or widening existing roadways. And then it's pretty openly spread out between existing public transit, operational, non-motorized improvements, and bike ped. I'm curious, for those that talked about investing in new roadways, who were the new roadway people? Anybody had it? Okay. Councilor Hutchins. And he's like, it was me, I fess up. What was your idea?
Somebody else must have pushed this button. I have no idea.
You have no idea.
Mainly just what you heard earlier, an east-west corridor that doesn't take you an hour to get from I-5 to 99.
Okay. And we've heard that again, depending on where you are in the county, there's different levels there. Who said stoplights?
I say take down the stoplights and the stop signs between and you make it back.
There you go. There you go. One way in the morning and one way in the afternoon, and then, you can have a little Bay Area love there. Okay. One of the things that was in here was, of course, non-motorized improvements. I'm curious who picked that one, the idea of investment in bike and ped. Yes?
Well, I used to be a biker, but I think of things like going to Patterson, it's like taking your life in your own hands. There's just no way I could go to either Patterson or Miss Lee. I would love to see some way, it doesn't have to necessarily be on 33 again now, maybe some way for me to use more non-motorized transport. I'm a big walker in town. I walk a lot of places because I live fairly close to, the downtown and everything, and I do that, and I love that. But what I feel like to leave Newman, the public transit is not that good, and even if I wanted to take a bike, I think highly dangerous.
Well, it's interesting, and the reason I kind of was pointing that out is that in the polling we've done, both online and in the mail polls and in all the different workshops we've had, basically those bike and ped improvements have been universally embraced all over. And there's been a lot of people that are saying just that, well, maybe I'm not going to ride my bike every day 20 or 30 miles, but just the ability to feel safe on city streets and safe on the byways and connectors going from point A to B would be a good thing. We've also heard a lot of people say that they wish there were more opportunities for transit. This next question is regarding concerns for the plan. And this is, what areas, what is your biggest concern regarding Valley Vision Stanislaus? This is a pretty complicated plan that gets trotted out every 4 years. StanCog is the agency that is sort of overseeing this, but there are definitely concerns that we've heard from multiple jurisdictions and from individuals about how does it get produced, who decides what's going to go in it. So I'm going to ask you again to pick 3, and these are your biggest concerns regarding Valley Vision Stanislaus. Number 1, lack of control by my local jurisdiction. Number 2, lack of available funding for projects. We already know there's going to be less money, and we know that there's going to be the same, if not more, projects. 3, will my opinion be considered to help shape the plan? In other words, I tell you what I want to see. Does anybody care? Is it already a done deal? That sort of thing. 4, the ability of the plan to reach its goals, which would be, of course, reducing congestion, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and helping to improve the local economy. 5, prioritization of projects. Who decides what goes in the plan? Who doesn't decide what goes in the plan? And 6, none of the above. Now, 6 is a double one. Either you're just sleeping like a baby at night, you're not at all worried about what's going to happen with this plan, or we didn't come up with your own personal terror, which we'll also talk about in a moment. But everybody go ahead and weigh in. You get 3 of them. 1, loss of control. 2, lack of available funding. 3, will my input be considered? 4, ability to reach the goals. 5, prioritization of projects. And 6, none of the above. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so, come on. You can do it. You get back. You're just having all kinds of technical fun here tonight. Ah, there we go. Okay, so the biggest questions of the day. Let's see, lack of available funding, that was the number 1 with 14 responses. Prioritization of project with 12, loss of control 11, will my input be considered 10, and ability to reach the plan goals 9. None of the above 3. Who are my none of the aboves? None of the above? Oh, come on. Did anybody have a concern that wasn't listed on the board? Okay, well, let me ask you this then. The loss of control by my local jurisdiction, is that like the entire council, or is that also people in the room?
We'll never tell you.
Well, the good news on that particular one is that the big concern is always when you do these regional plans, does it somehow supersede local control? Are you going to come in and mess with my general plan, my land use decisions? And the answer is no. The plan is not intended to change or alter in any way your circulation element, your general plan, none of those things. You as a council will have an opportunity in the fall when we're done with the plan to support it, say yay team, but you are not required to adopt it. I mean, that's something you can do on your own. The reality is that for this particular type of program, the environmental review portion of it allows you to tier other projects that may come before Newman off of that big picture environmental document, which will save you some steps down the road, but it's not intended to take over. Now, the lack of available funding, there's really no good news on that one, I'm afraid. There's not going to be enough funding, so that is a factual thing. We're going to talk a minute about some things that you might consider to fix that. The other part about public input, just wanted to stress again that we're really trying to do everything we can to get as much input as possible. So if you go home tonight and you have a thought, you want to send more information in, again, go back to our website, send us in a comment, write a letter. We're going to have workshops coming up again in April, and we're really trying to do everything we can to get people talking. If you have a group that you think might be interested in talking to us or learning more, please let us know. We'd be more than happy to go out and talk with them. It's supposed to be an inclusive, transparent process. We are absolutely using the input to develop those alternatives, and all of the input will be made available on the internet so you can see who said what and what jurisdictions thought what things and how it was incorporated. Going to the next question. This is a single one. It's a tougher one, actually. What's the most important issue to you in the process? This is one answer. We can only click one time. Number 1, offering more transportation choices. Number 2, improving air quality. 3, providing more housing choices. 4, conserving valuable farmland. 5, reducing traffic congestion. Or 6, none of the above. You only get to vote for one of them this time. More transportation choices, number 1. Improving air quality, number 2. More housing choices, number 3. Conserving farmland, number 4. Reducing traffic congestion, number 5. None of the above, number 6. And let's see what folks had to say. Okay, none of the above. Not that important. Okay, I'm going to skip that one for the moment. Conserving valuable farmland. That's a big one. How many folks thought that was the most important to them? Just out of curiosity. Okay. And you folks here, why is that so important to you?
Well, once the ground is gone, it's no bringing it back.
That's right. There's only so many places that have this type of a environment that are so valuable, I guess, is the way to put that. Reducing traffic congestion. Who has had that as their priorities? Traffic congestion. Anybody? Well, obviously, that's one of the big things with the plan. When there's less traffic congestion, that means that people move through the county easier. That means we reduce greenhouse gas emissions. On the none of the aboves, did anybody have something that wasn't in here, or is it just sort of you want to get through it as painlessly as possible and be done with it? Okay.
Economic development.
Economic development. Okay, so the ability of the plan is not a job killer, that kind of an idea?
Well, just factored in all aspects, but we want to reduce congestion, but also have more jobs is a main goal that most everybody in the county has. So.
Well, and I think one of the things we're looking at when we talk about the land use is that let's say that you're trying to attract a large business operation to come here or put in a business park or some type of an employment center. We have to plan within the region to figure out how you're going to move people and or goods to and from that location. Because the first thing somebody looks to when they're going to cite a new business is, how am I going to get, do I have a valuable workforce that's there, and how am I going to get people to and from my place of employment? So that's one of the things that we're taking into consideration in this go-around, and hopefully it'll be something that helps spur economic development as opposed to killing it. We have heard quite a bit from, I would say, the farmers and from a lot of the folks that work in either agricultural businesses. There's big concern there about plans like this because they're concerned that it's going to be onerous, that there's going to be additional regulations placed on them on either state or federal level. The good news for this particular county is that the way that most of the agencies have already been working with their plans, we're not expecting that kind of draconian, job-killing bit here. We're very close to meeting the goals that we're need to approach to be compliant with that SB 375. Okay, the next couple questions, and we're moving right along. I promised we would. How are we going to grow? We are going to see development occur over the next 25 years. Hopefully some of that development is going to be new job centers, but it's definitely going to include housing and other types of things. So the question is, how do we do that? Now the first question I'm going to ask you is really a statement. We have plenty of land, so we should not worry about cities spreading out as they grow. Plenty of land, we should not worry about cities spreading out. That means sprawl is not a problem. We love sprawl, it's all good. So I'm going to tell you these different choices. If you agree with that statement, strongly agree, you hit number 1. If you only agree, number 2. You're neutral, don't really have an opinion, that would be number 3. Disagree, number 4. Strongly disagree, number 5. And 6, you don't know. So the statement is we have plenty of land. We should not worry about how cities spread out when they grow, or cities spreading out when they grow. Plenty of land, not worry about how cities grow. Cities should spread out all they want. Have you been to Southern California? Just okay, let's see what people had to say on that one. Okay, yay this room. We have mainly people saying disagree and strongly disagree. And good for you, because we are hearing that pretty loud and clear across the county at this point. There have been a couple developers here and there that have had a differing opinion. But the reality is that people have been pushing more for what we call compact growth, the idea that we want to grow within the cities that we have right now as opposed to out and stretching resources or housing or job centers away from where we already have infrastructure ready to go. So the next couple questions, how should Stanislaus County grow? Number 1, keep it exactly as it is today. No changes. 2, similar to past growth patterns. And in the past, we have gone out a little bit, right? And we haven't really done anything or focused on what we call infill or redeveloping or revitalizing places that are already developed. 3, slightly more compact than past growth patterns. That would mean you might see higher density, more houses in a block than maybe you saw before, businesses closer to housing, kind of clustering of things. And 4, much more compact than past growth patterns. And that's something where, for a downtown area, you might see, retail on one floor, housing on another floor, everything kind of compressed together. So, number 1, keep it exactly as it is today. 2, similar to past growth patterns. 3, slightly more compact. And 4, much more compact. Okay, so let's see. You guys are really good at this, going fast. Okay, so similar to past growth patterns and slightly more compact. Also, there are a few folks for the much more compact. On the slightly more compact, who had love with that? Who thought that was a good idea? Yes. How do you visualize that? What does that mean to you?
If you have a large block with an older part of town, granny flats, at really affordable prices, per square foot, realizing that you wouldn't have to increase, you wouldn't have to put a real high school tax fee on it because you're going to be centering it on a single occupant living in that granny flat. And also would, our alleyways and stuff would accommodate it really nicely.
So the idea more creative with the land you have
Right.
and places that maybe are being underutilized as opposed to going places that haven't been touched at all yet. How do other folks, I'm curious with council, what are your thoughts on that? Mr. Mayor?
I was kind of right in the middle. I want the slightly more compact than in the past, and I tend to agree with what Bill said. It was just my gut feeling. I just felt it slightly more compact.
I think what's important to keep in mind, and again, that's where it goes back to this individual cities making those decisions. I think that we've definitely heard a real fear from some folks that when we start talking about compact development or even more compact development, that means somehow we're going to go in and bulldoze single-family homes that have the ranch-style types of business or ranch-style types of layout. And that's not what's being discussed. Those places stay. The idea is that when you have, like you were saying, some place that is underutilized, maybe you consider, townhouses or condos that are a little bit smaller. Or no, granny flats only? Okay.
Small, compact, separated buildings.
Okay.
Okay, I don't want to have building, build out like Agenda 21.
Oh, right.
recommendations.
That's exactly
We
the fear,
don't
yeah.
need that.
Right, so that is exactly the fear that a lot of people have, which I wanted to point back going this way, is that each community makes that decision.
Not under Agenda 21.
Well, I'm thinking here in Newman that the city council and your planning commission will take a strong hand in that one and figure out what you want to do
That's
here.
great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, let's take a look at this next question, which is where we should grow, where that growth should happen. One, in existing cities, that means where you already are incorporated or you have a sphere of influence that's in place. Two, adjacent to existing cities, which means the unincorporated parts of the county. Three, anywhere. You should just, anywhere we want to grow, that works. Or four, nowhere. No growth, no more building, nothing else coming to the county. So one, in existing cities. Two, adjacent to existing cities. Three, anywhere. And four, nowhere. Okay, let's see here. Okay. In existing cities and adjacent. We had just a couple people for nowhere one and I'm sorry, anywhere one and nowhere three. In existing cities and in the unincorporated areas, that's one thing that you're probably going to see in terms of overall management, of overall push, is that people do want to see countywide. It seems like they would rather have goods and services and housing in their existing communities or close by so they have access to those types of facilities and types of transportation programs. As far as what happens in each community, that'll be determined by the individual city councils and by the county as a whole. But in general, we haven't really seen a whole lot of anywhere. People seem to want thoughtful planning to go forward and figure out where the best places are to put things. We talked a little bit earlier about funding and the challenges that are going to be out there in terms of getting funds for all the different projects and programs. This last question is really just a snapshot of this particular room this night. So you can pick as many of these or none of them, whatever you like. In order to fund new transportation projects and programs, which of the following, if any, would you support? In other words, this is money that we raise specifically for transportation, buses, roadway improvements. Number one, toll roads. Number two, a property tax increase. 3, half-cent sales tax. 4, vehicle license fee. Or 5, none of the above. And I say you can pick all 4 of the first ones, 1 or 2 of them. You can hit none of the above, whatever you like. You can have anything you want on that one. Give everybody a second to weigh in on that. Okay, let's see what folks had to say. Okay, none of the above. Pretty much the head of the class in this room. We have 12 none of the aboves, 2 for vehicle license fee, 4 sales tax, 1 property tax, and 4 toll roads. That's one of the challenges that's going to be coming up in the next couple of years, obviously, is how you're going to fund all these different programs and projects with the lack of revenue coming in. That said, there's still a lot of money on the table. I think that the RTP, this for 20 years, it's about $4 billion worth of projects. That's the need. How much do we think we're going to have? Not that much. That never happens in government. So that's one of the challenges, and it's really important where if you get interested in this particular process, that's one of the things that's great about weighing in and telling us what you think, because at the end of the day, not everything is going to be funded. So we need to figure out what things are most important to the people in the county and the various jurisdictions and how we're going to allocate those funds. So next steps, next steps are we're going to all start passing those nice little clickers down to the ends of the aisle so that no one can flee the building with them. You look too comfortable to go running after them in the streets. So again, this portion was on the visioning portion of it, and thank you so much, all of you, for participating tonight, even though you came for other agenda items. I'm almost positive. We really appreciate the fact that you came here and were able to play with us for a little bit. After this, the website, again, valleyvisionstanislaus.com, more information to follow. We'll come back again in a month or so, month and a half, and talk about the alternatives, what's going to be available in each of the packages. And we're going to ask people to give us their comments and weigh in on what they think would be the most advantageous for the county at this point. That's going to result in a preferred alternative, which is what will be used to shape the plan. In the summer, that'll be reviewed for environmental review and for comments. And then we'll have the draft plan June, July, and the Standcog board will be looking at the final plan in October. As I mentioned before, the website has every document possible associated with this particular project. It also has fact sheets and other information in Spanish, so if you have folks that are more comfortable reading Spanish, fine, that's great. We also have additional surveys there and the ability to sign up for e-news and/or send comments or questions to the project team. You can ask us about looking at a particular issue, a particular type of transportation, a request for a document or background information. Maybe you don't understand why something is in the plan or what needs to be there, and all that information will be there. Again, I want to thank you all for coming, and for ever so short of a few moments, if anybody has any questions about the process that they'd like to pose, I'm open for that at this time. And if not, then we'll turn it back over to the mayor.
Questions or comments?
What's up?
Anybody?
Questions or comments?
Seeing none? Thank you so much. Appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. Thank you. And
Thank you, Carlos.
thank you. Okay, so we'll
Thank you.
unplug this and get out of your way.
Okay. All right, we'll move to item 7, items from the public, non-agenda items. Any member of the public wish to address the council, now would be time to do it. Step to the podium, state your name and address, please. Seeing none, we'll go to item 8, consent calendar. A is waive all readings of ordinances and resolutions set by title. B is approval of the warrants. C is approval of the minutes of the February 12, 2013 regular meeting.
I move we approve the consent calendar as brought.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Item 9 is public hearings. A is adopt resolution number 2013, next in number, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 281, mistletoe abatement. Garner, when you get a chance, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. As you stated, item 4 tonight is consider to adopt a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 281, mistletoe abatement. Broadleaf mistletoe, let me speak a little closer to the microphone. Broadleaf mistletoe is an evergreen parasitic plant that grows on a number of landscape tree species throughout California. The plant is typically spread from birds, and it is important to remove mistletoe before it spreads to other limbs and trees throughout the community. The most effective method for control is through complete removal of the limb or branch by mechanical pruning. Abatement notices have been mailed for the removal of the mistletoe. Currently, we have 20, at the time of the staff report, we had 26 properties that had not abated their properties in accordance with the City of Newman Municipal Code, Chapter 9.06, Section 9.06.020. This notice informs the property owners of all nuisance abatement procedures and options and the right to a public hearing. This morning we went out and we did another survey, and currently the list dropped from 26 properties down to 15, and I did provide you with that current list. Therefore, staff recommends City Council conduct a public hearing and consider adopting a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 281, mistletoe abatement. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions or comments, Garner? Just wrote one real quick. Garner, in a case where, and I see a name on here, obviously there's no way this person could abate the mistletoe. We just abate and we bill the property owner is what we do?
We're pretty flexible. We do work with the property owners. We do have one that has contacted us saying they don't have the ability to do that. So then we have a contractor. If we can't do it, we have a contractor come out, they abate it, and then the property owner pays that contractor.
Well, I just say, I see a name on it, and she's like 92 years old.
I believe that's the lady that already contacted us. And we're working with that property owner to get that abated for her.
Okay.
There was one. And then we have several that have asked for a couple extensions, and we've granted that. And we'll go back and check them at the end of their extension.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments? Open the public hearing. They wish to address the council?
Sure.
Bill?
It'll only take me about an hour and a half.
You got an hour and 29 minutes.
3 minutes, Bill.
I'm sorry I couldn't do a PowerPoint presentation here. I hope this will kind of get by.
Thank you.
The reason I came here today was because on the mistletoe that I had in my yard, I've removed it continually now for 4 years. And what I like to bring up is.
Bill, would you, before you get started, would you just
Oh,
please
Bill
state your name
McCandless,
and
1017 P Street.
then restart your
Okay.
comments?
So I've had this abatement problem with the mistletoe and the trees. And I've given these gentlemen 4 photographs of mistletoe problems. The 3 on paper, not on the glossies, are from my trees that have the mistletoe in it. It's already been removed. But I'd like for you to take a notice of how many limbs are actually left in the trees after doing mistletoe removal. Okay, it's very sparse. Now the tree on the glossy is a tree that's across the alley that has not been, it has not been pruned or taken care of for 7 years. And I want you to compare the foliage or the canopy on the tree that has not been pruned. It's in better shape than mine that I've been taking care of because I'm over pruning the trees to remove these little patches of mistletoe. I don't contend that the mistletoe removal is, a bad thing or anything, but the way that it's being implemented is being overly removed. Mistletoe has a male and a female. The female produces seed. It takes 3 to 7 years for that plant to produce seed. So what happens is that if you keep chopping away on the tree, the cure is killing the tree, not the mistletoe. So what I'd like to bring up on this is that when you're looking at this mistletoe problem, back off on it, prune it out every 3 to 5 years, and also leave more of it to the homeowner as far as your notices and stuff go. Because otherwise, I'll kill my trees to fulfill your desires, because it's not necessary, what you're doing. Any questions?
Any questions of Bill?
Bill, mistletoe, you seem to know a little bit about it.
Well, you
What
have to
trees are
remember, I have a
affect-
degree in plant physiology.
Okay, so what trees would be affected by mistletoe? Are there certain trees that,
Well, see, that really, mistletoe is most detrimental on like black oaks, and it's on Modesto ashes, which I have. Now, when we first did this tree planting program here, we switched over to raywood ashes. That's what a number of your trees are on the streets. And I, at that time, owned a retail nursery. So we switched over from Modestos to raywoods, and they don't get mistletoe quite as severely because it has more of a slick bark on it. But they have a real problem with a small insect called a whitefly. They get into the trees, and that's very expensive to eradicate. So on one hand, you get mistletoe, but also on a Modesto ash, you have a beautiful canopy, and it's quite large. On the raywood ash, it's more of a ball. The raywood ash with that whitefly problem is going to be more expensive to take care of than the mistletoe if you take care of the mistletoe in a 3 to 5 year range. You can come out pretty good on it. So when we did this whole thing, we went that way. But you got to remember, there were a lot of non-professionals making these decisions, as we went along and tried to do a street tree plan here. Like one time we had hackberries. I don't remember if you remember that one. Trying to find the right tree. Hackberries don't get mistletoe, but hackberries, kind of obvious. You don't want to have that on your car. So there's, a trade-off there. I like the raywood ash because no whitefly and the large canopy. And I realize it's going to cost me money about every 3 to 5 years. But if I do it every year, I'll kill the tree. So that's why I'm up here nervous as heck. But if there's any other questions about, what the physiology of it is and anything of that nature. And you got to remember, too, when you're driving down here to the river and you see all those big, huge clumps of mistletoe, those are maybe 10 to 15-year-old clumps, okay? And those trees aren't dead, and one half of those are males with no seeds, and then the other half will be producing seeds because they're over 7 to 10 years old, or 3 to 7 years. So don't, and also, every fall, people would go, my goodness, I've got mistletoe. No, you've had mistletoe for years, and it's in these things. Those trees that tree that you see on the nice green mistletoe with that beautiful canopy, that's 7 years it hasn't been pruned. 7 years it probably received notices. It's over on Q Street. And I know where I'm getting infected from, but I don't care where it comes from. All I'm caring about is what my trees are doing. Following me? I have no control over your program, except for when it affects me.
I've got one question, Bill, since you
Yeah.
are, and I know this from other entities, the seeds are carried many times by birds. As long as we have this tree, we're going to have this problem. So sooner or later, you're going to have to prune your tree down to a nub because it's just going to keep coming back no matter what.
No. There is a chemical treatment that you can do on the established grander sized trunks. When it infects that, if I didn't have to remove the mistletoe, I could go in and chemically remove it by spraying that mistletoe 3 to 5 times, and it would kill that mistletoe off. But I can't do that because my notice says remove immediately. Otherwise, I'd be on your list, and you would send, and I don't mean to be rude or anything like that, you'd send somebody over to my property and tell them how to prune my trees. Unfortunately, I think I'm a little bit more qualified than the people that you're sending over to do this, because I had a lot of difficulty with it. And we're trying to explain to them, no, you're not doing it.
Well, I guess my question was, and you kind of answered it, as long as you're required to remove it, sooner or later your tree's going to be down to a nub.
No, it'll die.
Well,
Yeah, my tree won't be a nub, it'll be dead, and it'll be standing dead. When you start defoliating a tree of this size, I have 50-foot trees. I'm not so concerned about what I'm removing. I'm more concerned about the defoliation is going to reduce photosynthesis, right? So I'm weakening the tree slowly and killing it off that way. Besides that, though, every time I take a limb out, now remember, these are being done by climbing. You have to climb up into the tree because booms won't reach that high and that far over into my yard. I'm removing limbs out of the tree, and then I'm getting sunburn in the summer. I don't have leaves in the tree, right? So now you're baking all of the new shoots that were supposed to produce the leaves for next year or for that summer. They're getting burned off, and I'm killing the tree that way. So when I prune out a limb from last year's, it'll be half dead if it's up above 40 feet because it's being baked. So it's a double whammy. Any other questions?
Only thing I have is, since you've identified this as being on Q Street, is it one of these addresses, Ryan?
I don't know which is address it is.
I'm 1017.
No, the,
It's right across the street. I mean, it's within 100 yards
I'm
of
just
my
saying,
trees.
you
I
identified,
don't-
you
yeah, but
you
I don't-
identified this tree as being on Q Street. I'm just asking, is this tree on the list?
I don't know the address for that.
Okay, maybe you can check with Bill and,
Sure.
Could be about a 10,
We have a
on Q.
1038Q.
Real close. But see, I don't care, I'm not here to complain about how you're running your program. It's none of my business. I mean, that's yours. All I want to do is save my trees. Okay, I have 3 50-foot Modesto ash trees. It runs me about $500 every time I have to get up in there and pull all that stuff out because I have to get help, to help me do it. And I have to sit down there and help them, with the ladders and everything else. The cost doesn't have anything to do with it. If I had known that this was going to be this big of a problem 30 years ago when I moved there, I would have gladly chopped down the trees and done whatever. Where am I going to be? What convalescent hospital am I going to be in 20 years to get the shade if I replant those trees? If you can tell me that, I'll go plant the trees at the convalescent hospital and I'll be fine in 20 years. That's what it comes down to.
Garner?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple points of clarification. We have switched over to putting in more Raywood ashes versus the Modesto ash trees. That-
Yeah, no, we did that.
Okay, just as a
25
point of
years ago.
clarification.
That's what I'm saying. I helped you guys make that decision.
Okay,
when
thank you
when
for that.
went to the Raywoods.
Any other question,
But I didn't
comment?
do the hackberries. That wasn't mine. That one came from Palo Alto, from one of our city managers.
And then the other point of clarification, we
Go
do
ahead.
this typically on about every 2 to 3 year cycle. It's not every year that we do the mistletoe.
I disagree. You've had years where it was year after year.
Since I've been here. We didn't do it last year.
I thought last year I had a little bit of a difficulty with,
Well-
I didn't notice last year, I thought.
Bill, I think the point that Garner's trying to make is since he's been here, he has started a program, I think recognizing the fact that trees don't need to have mistletoe removed every year. That's what I'm hearing, so.
That's correct.
So I'm hoping with the comments you have made and from what I've heard our Public Works Director, Superintendent, the statements he's made is he recognizes the fact that it's not an every year program. He's instituted a program recognizing trees don't need to be abated every year, so.
Mine didn't need to be abated this year. I'll be
Okay.
quite honest with you. About, I'd say 18 to 20 years ago, I removed one mistletoe plant that had seed, okay? And it was an old one, you know, that I just actually let it go too far. But I pulled it out before it even matured. I mean, there are certain people that you're gonna be dealing with, I realize, they should have lived in apartments. But there's other people that do take care of their property, that do know, how to do things.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have to be told how to do this. I'm quite well aware of how to cook hamburger. I don't need to, have a thing on every package that tells me how to do it. So, cut some slack on this thing if you can. It'll save me a lot. And also, I want to try these chemical treatments because I do have some mistletoe problems in the larger limbs, and I don't want to lose them. And there's 2 new products out by Monterey Chemical that I'm very interested in trying. And I do have the licensing to, write up a recommendation for my own property.
Well, I think that's something we can get together and talk about.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
If you ever need any help, give me a holler.
I will.
Any other comment for a closed public hearing? I think that's what I'm doing. Closed public hearing, bring it back to council for direction.
I so move that we adopt resolution number 2013, X number, declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 281, mistletoe abatement.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item B, second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2013, X number, amending Title 11, Public Ways and Properties, Section 11.05.040, water rates of the City of Newman Code, setting water rates, fees, related service charges effective April 1, 2013, and authorizing staff to prepare and publish a summary of said ordinance. Gardner.
Thank you, Mayor. As you stated, the item for you tonight is to conduct a second reading and a public hearing for the amending the Title 11, Public Ways and Property, Section 11.05.040 for water rates. During the January 22nd, 2013 council meeting, City completed the protest vote required by Proposition 218 for water rate adjustments. A total of 119 protest votes were received, which is approximately 4% of the voters and is short of the simple majority required for a protest. Newman Municipal Code requires all rate increases to be codified through an ordinance amendment process. The ordinance amendment process requires the city to introduce the ordinance, conduct a first reading, then conduct a second reading, a public hearing, and then consider adoption of the ordinance. On February 12, 2013, City Council conducted the introduction and first reading of the ordinance amendment. The final step in the process is to conduct the public hearing, the second reading, and adoption of the ordinance amendment. Adoption of this ordinance amendment will codify the rates, with the new rates being implemented during the April billing cycle. Therefore, staff is recommending the municipal code modifications and adoption of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newman amending Title 11, Public Ways and Property, Section 11.05.040, water rates of the Newman City Code, setting the water rates, fees, and related service charges effective April 1st, 2013, and authorize staff to publish a summary of said ordinance. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Questions, comments of Garner? Seeing none, now open the public hearing. Do you wish to address the council? Close it, bring it back to council for direction.
I move that we adopt ordinance number 2013, next in number, amending Title 11, Public Ways and Properties, Section 11.05.040, Water Rates of the Newman City Code, setting water rates, fees, and related service charges effective April 1st, 2013, and to authorize staff to publish a summary of the ordinance.
I second that motion.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to ask the council for consensus. We have a group here that's here on item D. I'd like to move item D above the next item A in the regular business, if everybody concurs.
I concur. That's fine.
Okay. So Michael said going after A, we'll move ahead of A.
Okay.
So if you want to go ahead and address that.
Thank you, Mayor. As you recall, we had a request by a local travel soccer club to use city facilities for practice time and for games. That request came before you at your last meeting of February 12th. Since that time, I've had the opportunity to meet with the school district, and we've been able to work out a schedule that is acceptable to the travel soccer club. They're going to practice at Yolo Middle School on Wednesdays and Thursdays, which was their original request, from 5:30 to 7:30. There are some dates here, and I'm going to pass that on to the club, where the OHS or the facility may be used up till around 5:30, so they're going to have to wait till that facility is vacated, and then they can take the field. It looks like there's 5 days here over the next couple of months that might work. So, in talking to the director, there was a question of whether the games were going to be allowed to be played at Yolo. The district didn't get 100% back to me on that one, so I'm going to work with them on that. If it's not going to be able to be accommodated at Yolo Middle School, we'll find a way to accommodate them at one of our city facilities. Ideally, Yolo would be nice because, as I've learned tonight, that they still have soccer posts up there right now, and we don't. And one of the things we don't want to have to do is bring our soccer posts out and leave them out all the time, because then they get subject to vandalism and kids hanging on them. We just bought those brand new posts. So we'll work with the group with respect to the games. The director is going to provide me a schedule of the games. He'll be working with his league, and then I'll work with the school district to see how we can accommodate those games at this time. So at this particular point in time, it seems that the city's been able to work with the district to accommodate them. They will be practicing Wednesdays and Thursdays, 5:30 to 7:30 at Yolo Middle School, and the actual location of the games is still to be determined once we get their final game schedule.
Any comments, questions?
And I don't know if they want, Ms. Mayla, did you want to say anything? If you do, you may want to go to the microphone. If not, you're okay. Okay.
Okay, everybody, you're happy with this? Okay, all right. I'm glad we were able to work it out for you, so you'll have some place to practice, and we'll continue working on a place where you actually play the games. Okay? All right, you're welcome. Thank you, Michael, for doing that.
You're more than welcome, Mayor.
Okay. If you folks want to stay, you're more than welcome to. If you want to leave, I'll give you a couple minutes before we move on. You want to stay? What, is not enough excitement?
Smart people.
All right.
Hey,
You stay put.
That took the crowd. Can we, he said we could leave, right?
I think it's break time. Cookies in the middle.
Yeah.
I don't, but it sounds good.
Okay. Now we'll move to item A, which is appointment of members to fill the vacancies on Plan Commission and Architectural Review Committee. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we have an opportunity here to do some appointments on our local committees. The first committee will be the Planning Commission. We actually have 2 people who filed for 1 vacancy. Crescendia Maurer, excuse me, who is the incumbent. She's been sitting on the Planning Commission for a while. and another gentleman named Michael Thompson. Both are in the audience tonight. The Architectural Review Committee, Mr. Sheldon Crow, Mr. Bob Dare, have been longtime members of the Architectural Review Committee. Ms. Diane Newell, who will have been nominated by the Chamber of Commerce to be their representative on there. And then whoever you select as planning commissioner tonight will also sit on the Architectural Review as a member of the Planning Commission. So tonight what we're asking you to do and what we've provided you on at this point in time is we have the exact number of people we need for the Architectural Review so we can make that appointment. When you choose between the two persons for the Planning Commission, that person will also be appointed to the Architectural Review. So tonight we will need to conduct interviews with the two Planning Commission applicants and then make a decision.
So 3 of the Architectural Review people are standing commission people by proxy, pretty much. The Newman Historic Society representative, the building professionals representative, and the chamber representative.
Yes, and they're the only ones that we advertised for those positions, and they were the only ones to resubmit their applications.
Okay. So those are pretty much just automatic appointees then?
That's correct.
Cool, okay. And I'd just like to comment on, obviously, Christina been on it for a while, but also looking at Michael's application and qualifications, I think we are blessed to have 2 people so highly qualified, extremely qualified. So I know it's going to be a tough decision by this council. So with that, the process.
In the past, you've elected the process to where you've done the interviews. Each council member has picked whatever question or questions they like. You ask the applicant, they will respond. The applicant that is not responding to the question has typically stepped out of the room. And then they switch at that point after the interview.
Okay, so since we have 2 here, who wants to go first? You want me to flip a coin? Or you want to make a choice? I would if I had one. I don't have one.
I don't either.
Anybody have a coin? Any? Heads, you go first, Kristen, and tails, Michael, you go first. Flip it. Who's got a coin? Unbelievable.
You won't get it back, Mary.
All right, heads, you go first. Tails, Michael, you go. Tails. It's a tails.
Brett,
Thank you, Mary. Whoops.
Brett will open up the Lieutenant Short will open up the break room for you, Chrissy.
Why don't you come up to the front there, Michael? And again, I'm just really, really impressed by both.
Thank you very much.
Both candidates. I mean, it's very, very impressive. So it's going to be tough, and I think both of you would. I wish we could put both of you on there. I really do. So, all right. Who wants to lead this off? We have 6 questions. So,
I'll take number 6.
Don?
I'll start out with number 1.
Okay, go ahead.
Michael, what's your reason and motivation for seeking appointment to the Planning Commission here in Newman?
Well, I'm very interested in public service, and I've lived here super majority of my life, and I'm just interested in the subject matter, and it's sort of a hobby of mine, and I think it would be a fun thing to do.
Very good. Nick?
Michael, what's your vision of the city? For instance, what would you like to see the city look like in 10 to 20 years?
Oh, in 10 to 20 years, I'd like to see more high-tech industry coming to Newman, and see more office parks maybe, and preserve the hometown community aspects which give Newman its charm.
What kind of high-tech?
Yeah.
What kind of high-tech?
Well, I'd like to see microbiology. I hear that's really big right now, and that's something that's really lacking in Stanislaus County, which I think really should be improved upon. And I've spoken with some people about that.
Really? That's great. Thank you.
What do you think is the most pressing planning concern for the city?
Mistletoe abatement. No, yeah. Sorry. Pressing concern, well, we're looking at improving the traffic and bringing industry in. I think industry is probably the biggest thing, trying to accommodate housing and whatnot, so.
Bob?
Okay, Michael, thanks again for coming tonight. We were great, we appreciate it. My question is, what is the purpose of the general plan?
The purpose of the general plan is to provide an overarching strategy for how to develop the city and give a vision for what aspects we're going to prioritize and to essentially lay down a comprehensive, coherent plan so it doesn't develop into something that isn't livable. We want to improve the quality of life in the city, and that's, I think, the ultimate purpose of the strategic plan.
Thank you very much.
This next one, which is a two-part. What do you like most about Newman?
Well, I love the people. I know that that's not the planning question or answer per se, but no, I love the people, and I love the small town feel of Newman, and I'd like to see that encouraged, and I'd like to see newcomers embraced in a way, and yeah.
Do you think we do a good job embracing?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I wouldn't want to move. I love this place.
All right. Yeah, on the other side of that, what do you like least?
Like least, it's hard to say. Well, I'd like to see more economic opportunity is brought to Newman. I know that we have a small town, and we don't want to do, we don't want to overextend, but I'd like to know that the graduating class of 2013 has employment here in town if they choose to. That would be nice.
You want to ask number two?
I'll ask you. What do you think the relationship should be between the commission and the city council?
Well, advisatorily, as an advisor, more or less, providing, doing more of the legwork for the council, providing suggestions that maybe hadn't been explored, and then doing the exploration and providing that, giving some sort of, yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. And again, on behalf of council, I'd like to thank you and appreciate you coming in and submitting an application. It's what we ask is the community get more involved in, and I say certainly with the man of your qualifications and everything is you'd be a great asset. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate it. Yes. Crescenza. Okay. Right.
Crescencia.
Crescenza.
Okay.
Cressy.
Cressy. Yeah.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, Chrissy, Michael's gonna give us all $1,000 off the top, so.
I'm much poor, I'm afraid I'm not offering you anything.
So better go through the question process then, huh? All right. Thanks, Chrissy. Again, thank you for reapplying, and
No problem.
certainly you've been an asset to the commission. So we have just a few easy questions for you,
Okay.
and Councilmember Hutchins is gonna start.
Great. Cressy, what's your reason and motivation for seeking appointment to the Planning Commission?
Well, I believe that the city of Newman has some of the highest quality of life in all of Stanislaus County. It's one of the, my husband and I searched high and low, and I think one of the main reasons is because this city has had such a long-term foresight and vision of the way it wants to develop, and I think a lot of that has been centered, obviously, in excellent city staff, but as well, the people who have served on the Planning Commission have really worked hard to preserve the character of Newman, in everything, in how they've sort of envisioned, and that's in the general plan. And so I think that the Planning Commission has actually served a pretty critical role, and I I have a real interest in, maintaining the community feel, the architectural quality, and just making sure that the way that Newman develops in the future sort of maintains that quality of life. So that's my main motivation. I love living here. It's a gem of a city, and I want to see it stay that way.
Thank you.
Cynthia, what is your vision of the city? What would you like to see Newman look like in 10 to 20 years?
I would like to see, a resumption of some of the development that has sort of been, with the housing crash, to restart that. But one of the things I think that Newman has done really well compared to a Patterson is to ensure that the new development is of high quality. I'd like to see that resume. I think we need to, but again, smart growth, intelligent growth. I'd like to see a continuation of the downtown, sort of I'd like to see Highway 33, kind of those remaining sort of empty corridors filled in, but again, with a way that sort of echoes and reflects the history of Newman and preserves that. I would love to see more jobs in Newman, or high-quality jobs, and an improvement in the educational quality of our, local educational institutions. So I think those are, I think another critical piece is that you need some of the basic water resources, infrastructure, sewage system that needs to be expanded. If there is to be any more sort of, significant either industrial or residential housing to really take place, some of those critical pieces on the water infrastructure need to be addressed.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well,
Thank you again for coming tonight.
Okay, you're welcome.
I greatly appreciate it. My question is, what is the purpose of the general plan?
The purpose of the general plan is to guide where we want, what kind of development we want and where we want it to happen, essentially. And to also set standards for everything from curbs to roads, the kind of housing, basic housing infrastructure that we want and what we want that to look like, where we want our public spaces to be, but where do we want to emphasize commercial, where do we want to emphasize industrial. So it's really sort of, a way of making our vision for the future concrete. That's what I see the general plan.
Thank you.
thanks. What do you think is the most pressing planning concern for the city?
I think, two. I think that water piece is one of the pressing concerns. But I think it's kind of how do we bring good quality jobs to Newman and resume that growth, but do it in a way that, in a sense, if there's a future economic to diversify our economy. I think that's, so that's, how can we bring good quality jobs to Newman and diversify our economy, but preserve sort of the character and quality of our community.
Okay. Don?
What do you think the relationship should be between the commission and the council?
The commission is really an advisory group, and it looks maybe more deeply into the planning and development, long-term development issues of the city, and makes recommendations to the council. So I see that we have a supporting role to help you, council members, make good decisions and provide good advice. But ultimately, you are elected and you are accountable to the voters, and I think that we need to be strong as good, give good advice and support you in that decision making.
Thank you.
The last question is a two-part. What do you like most about Newman?
I love the walkability of Newman, and I live close to the old downtown. I go out and I greet and I meet people I know, and I greet people every day when I go out on the streets. So I feel really connected to the local community. I also see that there's a very strong, what I would call community fiber and network. So I know most of my neighbors. I'm I'm good friends with the pastor's wife across the street. I don't go to that church, but I know, I've got the First Baptist minister behind me. I've got my Girl Scout troop, so I know all the Girl Scouts. So every time I go out, I meet someone I know, and I feel very connected, and I feel, and I see that there's a lot of people who love the city and invest a lot in the city, so that are, not necessarily elected officials or in an official capacity, but who are really working very hard to build a strong, vibrant community. So, and I like meeting them every day on the street when I walk. So.
Second half is where the shoe drops. What do you like least about Newman?
One of the things I like least about Newman, I have to say, I wish we had better schools. I really think that that's one of our Achilles heels, that I think if we had, I think things are improving, and I think there's sort of a direction, but I wish we had higher quality schools and with more challenges for our children in terms of academic performance. That said, I love the community feel, but there's, I think, a lot of community support and commitment to the schools. I just wish that we had stronger academics, I guess. That's where, I'd like to see, greater improvements.
All right. Oh, shoot. All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Do I step out again?
No, we might as well stay in, right? We're going to bring in, because we don't have to do the architectural review.
We have to vote.
Huh?
We have to vote.
Yeah.
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 Did you say?
Vote with them here.
I know we don't have to do that one, but I thought we did it last time while they were out.
Yeah. Excuse me?
Didn't we do it the last time while they were out, or did we do it with?
They're both in.
Yeah, they're both in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, again, Michael and Chrissy, thanks so much. Both were excellent presentations, and I think we'd be very, very lucky to have both of you on our planning commission. However, there's only one spot on the planning commission, and whoever is appointed to the planning commission also gets a spot on architectural review, is the way it works. So I'll open to council for conversation or a motion or comments.
Well, I think like you said, Mayor, both of them, it would be nice if we had two with this type of credentials, but I just want to thank both of them very much for their interest.
Nick?
Go ahead, Nick.
I want to say the same thing. I wish there was two spots, but Michael, great. I'm going to make a motion that we that Crescencia be appointed to the planning committee.
Okay, there's a motion for the appointment of Cressy back on the planning commission. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome back, Cressy. Michael, please,
Come back.
come back and reapply. There's,
I could have sit here and flipped a coin.
I think there should be another spot
Next year.
coming up.
We will
Please
have
stay,
another opening on our planning commission this time next year.
stay involved, stay in contact with staff, come to city council meetings. It's a fresh air to have people here that are truly interested and not just to shoot bullets. So appreciate you coming out and participating. Thank you so much. Okay. With that being done, we'll go to item B, is a report on the LJ Newman building improvements. Garner.
Thank you, Mayor. The memorial building was constructed in 1974. It is a valuable asset and has served the city and the community well over the last 39 years. Our last major improvement that we conducted on the building was the heating and ventilation and air conditioning system in 2009. We did an inspection on the building. We pulled in our city engineer and the building official, and we walked through the building, and it revealed that there's a definite need to upgrade the main room. I'm going to break it into 3 different sections, the bathrooms and the kitchen, to a more modern style with updated appliances and fixtures, and to bring it into compliance with the American with Disabilities Act. In with your staff report and in monitors in front of you, I'll walk you through some of the pictures of the existing conditions of the building. This is the main room, and if you look at the main room in the upper part of the picture, it's kind of hard to see. but there are two different types of light fixtures. We have a flush-mounted fixture, and then we have one that's mounted underneath. So we have lights similar to what we have in here on the newer half of the build, or new quarter of the building, and then older fixtures on the other part. And then if you look on the lower photo, you notice that flooring repairs have been made. There's two different colors. There's some stains on the floor that we could not get up from one of our renters.
Those add character.
Pardon me? Adds character, yes, sir. And then we've attempted to do some repairs to it and patches over time, but the flooring is so old, it's getting really difficult to get things that would match that. So it is definitely in need of replacement with the mismatched lighting and the discolored flooring and things of that nature. So therefore, it's recommended that we look at installing some 12 by 12 inch resilient vinyl flooring tiles throughout the building instead of sheet vinyl. It's easier to repair and replace the 12-inch vinyl tiles versus cutting and repairing a sheet vinyl, and is a higher quality. In addition, it's recommended that we look at installing new ceiling tiles, lighting, do the miscellaneous wall repairs throughout the structure on the inside, and some painting. The estimated cost for those repairs are approximately $67,000. Understand these are planning level estimates, and as we move along, hopefully we can tighten these up and get better numbers for those. The bathrooms, they're fairly straightforward. The main goal is to bring those into compliance with the American with Disabilities Act. But as you look through these photos, you can see that they're very dated. We have the old stand-up urinals on the men's bathroom. They're probably, I'd say, dated in the late 70s, early 80s style. I don't know that there's been many upgrades at all to these facilities. Improvements that we're looking at in them is demolition of our existing facilities, modification of the existing plumbing and electrical, construction of new wall partitions, installing RFP wainscot, which is a waterproofing, replacing the fixtures and accessories, installing new flooring, ceiling tiles, and painting, with an estimated cost of approximately $50,000. In front of you are some photos of the existing kitchen. Now, the kitchen costs can vary significantly depending on the types of fixtures that we want to install into this facility. For comparison purposes, we looked at light fixtures that are in there and based our estimates on that. Currently, the kitchen has a stainless steel, on the upper right photo, you look, we have a 72-inch stainless steel gas range with 6 burners, 2 standard stove, and a griddle. And the pilot lights are on constantly. We've actually had some situations with the stove buttons not working, being left on accidentally, and it bothers me having those pilot lights. I think there's about 12 pilot lights on that one. The hood above the range appears to be in good shape. However, it may require updating to the fire suppression and venting of the system. We're not sure yet. Once we move in a little deeper, then we can determine that. The refrigerator is a 52-inch wide double door stainless steel refrigerator. And then if you look at the countertops on the lower left, we have a stainless steel countertop on the left and right. We're looking at leaving one of those in and replacing the one on the right side with a triple sink, and I'll get into that in just a little bit further. And then the cabinets. So in addition to the areas that we're looking at, we definitely have to put in hardwire smoke detectors throughout the facility. The recommended improvements for the kitchen facilities alone include updating the plumbing and electrical, install new upper and lower cabinets, reuse one of the 2 existing stainless steel counters, install a new 3-compartment sink, which is required for the new codes for public health for preparing food, install a garbage disposal, an on-demand water heater system under the counter, a new range, new refrigerator, upgrade the hood, the venting and fire suppression if required, install new ceiling tiles, lighting, and flooring and painting. Estimated cost for the bathroom or the kitchen is about $90,000. A couple other miscellaneous items that we're looking at for the building is to renovate the exterior lighting to make it more friendly in the evenings, upgrade the ADA entry access, look at installing a new alarm and access control system similar to what we have here at City Hall. That estimated miscellaneous cost is approximately $10,000. So you add up the bathrooms, the main room, the kitchen, the miscellaneous costs, and then you add about a 10% contingency factor on that for some unknowns that you don't know when you get into and renovate a building. You're looking at approximately $238,700 for these improvements that we've identified. So moving forward, the project can be phased if desired. We could break the project into the main room, the bathrooms, and or the kitchen, or maybe combine a couple of those. However, phasing the project could result in a higher cost with the building be out of service longer, multiple contractors, multiple designs, and so it's usually economy of scale is to lump that into one big project if we can so afford that. In addition to that, there would be a greater inconvenience to our customers for being out of service multiple times instead of at one time. If we were to do the whole project at one time, we're looking at a construction time frame of approximately 2 to 3 months. Currently, there is $30,000 in the fiscal year 2012-2013 budget. That was put into there to renovate the bathrooms. Looking into it further, we realized that probably a better opportunity would to utilize that funding for the design of all the proposed improvements for this fiscal year, and then budget in fiscal year 2013 and 14 for the construction of the improvements mentioned previously. In addition to that, staff is going to look into studying the rental rates of all of our rental facilities, including the memorial building, to ensure our rental rates are recovering the cost to operate and maintain these facilities. Therefore, it's staff's recommendation that the existing fiscal year 2012-13 budget be used for the design of the improvements, and then budget for the fiscal year 2013-14 for the construction of those improvements. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions or comments, Garner?
Garner, a question on these numbers that you came up with.
Yes, sir.
Is this a quote from any one contractor, or is that what it?
What we did is we had our city engineer, once we walked the building with our building inspector and myself, he came together with an architect to look at what types of improvements and how much it would cost on a planning level estimate. This isn't a detailed construction estimate. And he kind of gave us an idea on kitchen prices for the per square foot cost on flooring, for lighting, a number for doing the electrical and lighting repairs. The appliances, they estimated it could range anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 for a range, so they used the higher end on that. And same thing with the bathroom and the main room flooring. So we did somewhat of a detailed estimate, but not a construction level estimate.
So these numbers would be good as long as we do not phase in anything, as long as it's
I think we could
one
stay under
project.
budget as long as we weren't trying to phase the project.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Garner? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, when was the addition done on that building?
Mayor, it must have been done in the 80s. I came in 2003, and it was done before that. Their deputy clerk here appears to remember it was in the 80s when the add-on was done.
Originally it was 78, and then I think mid-80s,
I think it was about 1984 is what Dean Harris is telling
I think
me.
Severa Brothers did that construction, I think. Okay, sorry, Don.
No problem. What's our current, do we have any idea on an average revenue we're getting from the Louis Newman Center annually?
Currently, we estimate the annual revenues from the rental alone is about $20,000 a year, based on our current rental rates.
So how are we looking to fund this?
The funding would come through our capital repair and replacement program, and then we would help backfill that money in the capital repair and replacement program as we start looking at our fees and making some depreciation amounts into the capital repair and replacement program, as well as setting aside some of the future revenues for maintenance and operations, so that, that the goal is not to let your facilities fall in these types of conditions. We just need to make sure that we have a long-term plan moving forward with the maintenance, and that would be part of this project. If we move forward, we would then evaluate what the current rental straight rates are. We look at what the area is and what it could support, and we would charge appropriately, and then break that money out into, one, repaying the capital repair and replacement program, and two, using some of that money for maintenance and operations so it doesn't fall into disrepair in the future.
Do we have anything left in the capital repair and replacement?
Yeah, we're comfortable pulling the money out of there at this point in time.
Okay.
Well, obviously, building's a mainstay of our community, and it's used a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, and in the meantime, should the council decide that this is a viable project and would like to move forward, then we can also seek out other ways to maybe generate some additional funding through sponsorships and some of the other things. So, if the council determines that this is a viable project and they want to move forward, we'll look into, are there ways to raise funds locally, and some of the other things that could be done to maybe help supplement this project.
And at this point, really what we're asking for is, if council is comfortable with this moving forward, at least the design phase of the
Design
project.
phase.
And the design phase will help us tighten up the estimate on the construction as well.
Now, are we going to end up going out to RFP for the design phase?
Yeah, we're required to go out and solicit bids for anything over $5,000.
Well, the other thing, but we can use our city engineer, correct?
That's correct. I did forget about that. Correct. We have
Yeah.
already solicited bids and hired our city engineer through that process. So if the council desires and staff would recommend, we could go straight to our city engineer who has an architect on board.
Right. We would make the recommendation that we use our city engineer, and he would bring a architect on board. We've already gone through the RFP process. We've already looked at this. I think our city engineer, I think this would be in his scope of work. I think he can provide us this service at a very reasonable cost. And I think the timeline to help us start planning and budgeting, we're moving into, we're going to hear the mid-year budget. So, come next week, Lou's going to start working on the next year's budget. So the sooner we can get numbers, the better off we are. And they have to spend another, since we're not using any state funding or grant funding on this particular project at this time, we can just use our city engineer for the design, and I don't think we're going to get a better rate than that.
Do we have a time of the year that would be best?
Yeah, we're actually evaluating that right now, and that's something that we'll come back to you at when it's time to award the construction project. We're evaluating when that facility is used the most. Now, we do have some monthly groups that meet in there, and they're going to be displaced, so we'll give them as much notice as possible. But there's going to be some displacement. But we have our community room now, which is the former council chambers, and if that's not big enough, then we can work with the district and using the Bob McConnell Center, and that's a pretty large facility over there too. So we think there are community facilities that can handle the local groups that use it on a regular basis for the short period of time that we're looking at. Right now, we just say 2 to 4 months is the period. We're hoping for on the shorter side, but you never know what happens with construction, so. And again, as Councilman Hutchins indicated, we will pick the most appropriate time to try to get that done and give people adequate notice.
Well, do we need a motion to do this, Tom?
Yep.
Okay, I'd make a motion that we move into the design phase utilizing our city engineer as our, and have him bring in an architect to start the design phase on this.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move forward. Item C is adopt resolution number 2013. Next, a resolution adopting the mid-year changes for fiscal year 2012-13. Lou?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The resolution before you tonight is adopt changes to this year's budget. If you'll please turn to Exhibit A in the staff report. Exhibit A compares our budgeted revenues to actual receipts for the first 6 months of this fiscal year. As is common, most of our revenues arrive in the second half of the year. As you can see in our general fund revenues, are projected to be close to our budgeted amounts. Also, our enterprise funds are also estimated to come in close to our budgeted revenue amounts as well. If you'll also please turn to Exhibit B. Exhibit B compares our budgeted expenditures to our actual expenditures for the same first 6 months of the fiscal year. Unlike revenues, the majority of our expenditures fall almost equally in each 6-month period. In our general fund, many of our line item expenditures are coming in under budget. And we'll actually see how that affects on the final exhibit. In Exhibit C, that lists our revenue budget adjustments that we're requesting. You can see we're looking at a $25,000 reduction in our general fund revenues estimated. And then Exhibit D lists our expenditure and budget adjustments as well across all the funds. Both of these spreadsheets, Exhibit C and D, are used in calculating our projected ending fund balance, which is in the following exhibit, Exhibit E. In the last exhibit, you can see in the first column our original estimated starting fund balance, and in the second column our actual starting fund balance after we were audited. The third column is the difference of those two. We ended up starting up $11,000 better off than we thought we would. The next two columns, revenues less expenditures per budget and revenues less expenditures projected. The first column there is what was in our original budget. We budgeted we would lose close to $250,000 this year. In the next column, based on our projections, we look to have a better gain, much better than we thought we were going to start off with. The next two columns come from those two previous spreadsheets, C and D, which are revenue adjustments and our budget adjustments. And then the final column is the summation of our actual starting balance, our projected balances, and then these revenue budget adjustments and expenditure budget adjustments. As you can see in the last column under our general fund, even if we adopt all of the adjustments in the exhibits, we're still projected to remain a little over $3 million in our general fund ending balance. Staff is requesting that council approve the resolution adopting these mid-year budget changes. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Lou, just curious, under the fiscal impact, shows that we've had an assessment grade, a 2.9% decline in assessed values over the prior year. How does that compare countywide?
I think countywide was worse off altogether as a combination. There were some places that ended up better off than us. You know, it's one of those things. Last year, if you remember, there was us and one other city that ended up going up, and the remaining cities in the county all went down. So it basically fluctuates on, you know, what people's properties are assessed at, and that can have a lot of environmental effects, growth changes, you know. Up in Patterson, if they add in Amazon, that can cause an effect on assessed value. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Mayor, I
Yes.
just want to highlight one thing. This budget, this mid-year budget does include bringing Miss Officer Ashley Williams from a part-time employee to a full-time employee effective April 1st.
That was what I was going to ask. This one officer, part-time to full-time, that's what you want to bring on, not Singh, right? Not Officer Singh.
Officer Singh is already
He's
a full-time
already-
employee. He was promoted when we lost Corporal Borden
Yeah.
to Truckee.
That was August.
He took
Okay,
that
so he
spot,
took that
and
spot.
Officer Goslin was then promoted to corporal. At this point in time, Officer Williams, who's been doing an excellent job as a level 1 reserve for us, effective April 1st, so the start of the fourth quarter of this fiscal year, she would be moved to full-time status at that point in time. The one challenge that staff will have in that 30 days is, you know, California passed some new retirement standards, so we're going to have to do a side letter agreement with the POA to acknowledge that, because that's not current in our current contract. So I'll be working with their business rep to make sure that we get the appropriate language in so we can accommodate Officer Williams on April 1st.
I move we adopt resolution number 2013, next number, adopting the mid-year changes for fiscal year 2012-2013.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item E, report on North Central Flood Control Project, non-federal sponsor status. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, the Orriston Creek Flood Control Project has been going on for a number of years now. Orriston has flooded approximately 80 times in the past, 50 times in the past 80 years, excuse me. Not all of them have reached Newman, but the one that I think stands out the most for residents that were here at the time was the 1995 floods. During the 1995 floods, the flood rate exceeded 12,000 cubic feet per second. The water came into our community, flooded our downtown area. I think one of the biggest thing was it came in at night, and it really caught everybody off guard, so they had to do some evacuations, and there was a lot of things going on there. Shortly thereafter, the Stanislaus County prepared a hazardous mitigation grant application to help try to find a solution to it, and that was ultimately approved. So in 1998, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers started a feasibility study. And remember, this is 2013, so we're going back to 1998. It's been a long process. However, we can now see the light at the end of the tunnel. We just hope it's not a train. Part of the feasibility study, part of the feasibility study, and we've had this presentation by Public Works Director Matt Machado, who's again the director from Stanislaus County, is the local preferred plan is a chevron levee, which is basically a berm system around the perimeter of the city. That berm would be built to a height that would accommodate a 200-year flood event. That height varies depending on where you're at in the community between 5 and 8 feet. So you'd have a 5 to 8 foot barrier around the city. Berm, excuse me, not a barrier. Now, there are some advantages to it. We've talked to the Army Corps of Engineers. They can put a walkway, a bike path up on the top, and a few other things. So we're trying to figure out how to take this feature and make an amenity when it gets built. But again, getting back into the feasibility study, as you know, the feasibility study, the public comment period came forward. It just finished its public comment period. So now the Army Corps of Engineers needs to get this through to what's called a chief's report and ultimately get that approved. What the feasibility study does is it creates once again, a document that includes both CEQA, NEPA, and environmental review. You need this project to move forward. Without a chief's report and the approval of a feasibility study, you cannot get federal funding for a project to be built, which is another challenge. Without getting too much into the specifics of the actual details of the report, in order to move the feasibility report forward and get final approval, we need to identify a non-federal sponsor. Up until this point, Stanislaus County has pretty much rode the boat, if you will, through the floodwaters for the last 15 years and has taken it to this point. As you've heard Supervisor DeMartini say, the county is not wanting to move forward as a non-federal sponsor anymore. They're looking for somebody else to move forward. We recently had a conference call, and on that conference call was the CEO, Ms. Monica Nino from Stanislaus County. The supervisor was there, the public director of public works, Matt Machado was there, Mr. Jones was there, his first name is David Jones was there, myself, and public works director Garner Reynolds was there. And there were a lot of questions about what does it actually mean to be the non-federal sponsor at this point in time, because nobody wants to assume a financial liability and put yourself on the hook for a pretty big number. Right now that number sits around $20 to $22 million for the project. And that's just the local match. As you know, we have a general fund of about $3.6 million. So, we're falling a little bit short on funding that project. But with that being said, the Army Corps of Engineers assured us that by whoever signs the non-federal sponsorship paperwork, you're not financially obligated at this point to move the project forward. There is no financial commitment at this point to move the project forward. Once you get through the feasibility stage and this project is approved, then a non-federal sponsor again has to be identified. It does not have to be the same federal sponsor, non-federal sponsor who signs the feasibility report. It could be somebody different. It could be the county, it could be the Oris-Timber Flood Control District, it could be the city of Newman, it could be the Audubon Society, it could be somebody else. It doesn't have to be the one who signs this one. So, in the interest, and I put the minute notes, the meeting minutes from the conference call in your thing that'll help you, again, answer some of the questions. Right now, as your staff, I'm recommending that the city of Newman accept the role as a non-federal sponsor because we have to get past this stage. If somebody doesn't step up and be the non-federal sponsor by March 1st, we lose our place in line to get approved, and other projects that behind us can leapfrog us, and we don't know when we'll get the opportunity to get our feasibility study approved again. being on that conference call, I'm now more comfortable recommending this based upon the fact that we do not have a financial commitment to move forward. I'm more comfortable by having a conversation with the CEO of Stanislaus County, and we've had that conversation, and the mayor's been part of them, about the county, the city, and maybe Orange Timber Flood Control District having joint meetings and trying to figure out how to develop a phase 2, which would be the preliminary engineering and design phase, and develop and identify a non-federal sponsor for that particular phase. And then that non-federal sponsor would then enter into a contract with the Army Corps of Engineers and put themselves on a financial commitment, at least through phase 2, which is again preliminary engineering and design. Since there's just a separation, or really what I'll call an air gap between phase 1 and phase 2, I'm comfortable recommending that the city of Newman be the non-federal sponsor for the flood control project final feasibility report stage. At a separate point in time, we will have to discuss phase 2, which is the preliminary engineering design. That's a whole separate conversation. But again, for this phase right now, I'm comfortable again saying, based upon our conversation with the Army Corps of Engineers, the city can step up and be the non-federal sponsor. So I can answer any of your questions that you may have. And I know Jim was on the phone call, and I'm sure he'll cheerlead for us to be the non-federal sponsor. And again, there's meeting minutes from the conference call in there as well. So.
Well, obviously, it's critical. We need to get to the next step. I'm disappointed that the county has chosen to back out, and I know they've put money forward and all that. I understand. Still in my heart, I believe it's a Stanislaus County problem. It's an issue arising out of Stanislaus County. It's not a city of Newman problem. Only when it floods, then it becomes our problem. And so I have issue with that. But I think it's critical that we not lose our spot in terms of funding when it gets to that level. In no way would I support City of Newman being on the hook for $21 million. So that's not going to happen. So I hope the county will step back up to the plate and assume its role where it should, protect the citizens of Newman. But with that being said, again, I think it's critical that we continue to work together with the county and the flood control district. And that district needs to be expanded. The flood control district is probably worse off than all of us. They have no money. There's only maybe 10 members, and so that district needs to be expanded. I guess my feeling is, if we don't protect ourselves, who's going to protect us? It's not Stanislaus County. So, I'm having conversations with Michael. I'm comfortable with going ahead with this next phase, being a non-federal sponsor, as long as there's no financial liability to the city of Newman whatsoever. We've doled out money. We paid for borings out in the county that the Corps felt needed to be done for the project to go forward again, and we did that. I think we've been a good partner. However, in my heart, I still believe this is a Stanislaus County problem. It's not a city of Newman problem. All the issues come out of flooding are man-made, as Michael has pointed out. It's nothing that we have done to create flooding within our community. As far as I'm concerned, I take dump loads of dirt, circle our city, and everybody else be on their own. But that can't happen. So I'm still a firm believer that the train trestle is the biggest issue in flooding. I think our staff does a great job every year of going out and making sure the water flows through that trestle by cleaning all the debris out. I don't know that, and I know the Corps, job security, call it what you want, they've studied and beat this thing to death. They're afraid of the beetle and the trees and the mulberries and whatever else is out there. And I'm not convinced that dredging and widening the creek and all that stuff really needs to be done. In my mind, again, I think it's the train trestle is the main issue, but we need to get to the next phase. So I've been part of a lot of those meetings and heard a lot of talk, and so my hope is that we'll be able to get into the next phase. And again, we need to get there, but what's gonna happen in phase two is a whole different ballgame. And who's gonna be on the hook for that 20+ million? And it's not gonna be the city of Newman.
And I understood your staff report, but I had a question, Michael, on, when I was reading the minutes from the legal counsel for USACE, their response to question 3 was that the organization is on board as a sponsor and the organization expects to have the financial resources to fulfill the role of a sponsor. That kind of concerns me. I know they're saying we don't have any financial responsibility, but they're also, at least their legal counsel is saying that they expect us to have those resources.
Well, we're gonna, obviously, the devil's in the details, and when we complete the paperwork, we'll make sure that's not in there.
And part of it is just the capability of having it. And we have the capability because we have the capability of bonding, we have the capability of bringing, bond issue, tax issues to the residents. So the capability is partly there as well, so.
And again, then I go back to what Ed said. Then we're taking on the liabilities and responsibilities for something that is really not our problem, other than the fact that it floods our city.
Yeah, again, based upon just, I'm trying to separate phase 1 versus phase 2 versus phase 3. 3 is construction, 2 is engineering and design, and 1 is just this feasibility stage at this point.
Well, we need to get there, and I think we all understand we need to get to that point, but once we get to that point, then it's gonna rear its ugly head, about, okay, who's on the hook? And, again, I think Michelle answered the question number 4, that, the letter of intent shows that we have an interested sponsor who understands that the recommended plan not assuming obligation to enter PED agreement and no financial obligation or commitment being made by providing the letter of intent. Do I trust the state? Nope. Do I trust the feds? No. Do I trust Stanislaus County? No. But we need to get to the next phase.
Do we need a motion on this?
Well, I think there has to be probably a consensus of the council and.
To be for the city to be the sponsor, then you, I guess, maybe want also a direction about the financial commitment,
Exactly.
making sure that's not
That needs to be in
part
there.
of the
Yeah,
paperwork.
no financial commitment actually means no
What-
real
yeah.
financial commitment at this time.
What we're asking for as staff is for the city council to accept the role as a non-federal sponsor for the feasibility stage only, not subsequent stages
Right.
at this point in time, and to authorize staff to complete the paperwork that's necessary. So if at any point in time when phase 2 would come available, I could not enter, your staff could not enter into any agreements for a phase 2 because you're only authorizing to sign off on phase 1.
Right.
I'd make that motion. If that's what we need, Tom.
Yes, and again, making sure there's not a financial obligation in phase 1, too.
Correct.
I'll second that motion.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. We'll go to item 11. And Jim, I didn't ask you up to the podium during that because I knew you had your next up anyway, so.
Hey, good evening, Mayor Caton, council members. Just some comments on the flood control project. As you know, Stanislaus County has been involved in this project for 14 years, and although there's not the will of the county to continue being the lead agency or the non-federal sponsor, that doesn't mean that the county was going to walk away from this. We have a commitment to the community to see that this project is taken through to its completion. What is huge on this feasibility study that we've done is we've just analyzed all the alternatives and we've actually come up with a project. And in California, getting an environmental document for a flood control project is just a monumental task, and that is done. And it's important that we move forward now and get this environmental document certified and get the chief's report. And of course, time is of the essence that this gets done, so you can get to the to design. And so the county, is again committed to continuing to work on the project. It cannot get enough consensus from the CEO's office to be the non-federal sponsor or the lead agency. There is some community development funds which I can make available to the city to help organize the flood control district and even pay for maybe half of the election cost. So there will be some more money forthcoming from the county on this, plus the support of the Public Works Department or whatever it takes to try and get this project completed. There's been a lot of money spent on this in the last 14 years, probably between the federal contribution and the county. It's been about $6 million altogether, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we've come a long ways, and now we just have to get this environmental document certified to go on. So I just want to let you know that Stanislaus County still is here in a fairly good supportive capacity. Okay, and the only other thing I might mention tonight is our healthcare task force. I was to give you a little report. The next meeting is March 21st at Patterson at the Del Puerto Healthcare District. I did talk to our attorney today. Our attorney is working for free for us. We did get documents back for our nonprofit status from the state of California. Those were completed today, and they'll be sent off tomorrow. There's still the feds that were waiting for another letter from them. We've had contact with them. At this point, we see no problem in obtaining the nonprofit status at this time. I don't think we will, but it's a process. You know how government is and how slow it is to get anything done. But the indications that we've seen so far, we're on track. Hopefully, in the next month or so, we'll have it all completed. And that's all I have this evening, unless you have
Any questions, comments, Jim? Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Item 12, items from city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to remind everybody, we have a Founder's Day meeting tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. in what we're calling the community room, which is the former council chambers, and that everybody's welcome to attend. A couple meetings that are forthcoming. We talked a little bit about these at your last meeting. On March 19th, which is the third Tuesday of the month, we will be hosting a public meeting for the Northwest Quadrant Master Plan, and we'll be inviting the community as well, but we'll be sending out letters to the property owners that are in that area, as well as anybody who owns property within 500 feet of that area. We will also advertise that meeting in our local newspaper. Following that meeting, again, that meeting starts at 6. Following that meeting, being more of a technical meeting, we'll do a scoping session for the environmental impact report that's going to accompany the master plan document that's going to be forthcoming for our future annexation. Again, those meetings are on March 19th here in the council chambers. On April 16th, again, third Tuesday of April, that's when we'll be hosting the joint meeting between the city council and the school district. Our consultants will be here to kind of give an overview of the master plan. What date? That's Tuesday, April 16th. Okay. The third Tuesday of the month. And we'll host a joint meeting between the school board and the city council. We'll have consultants here to kind of walk you through that master plan and where it's at and kind of the process that's going to be taking place over the next, 7 to 12 months. I believe that's 6 p.m., but I'm going to double check. It may be 6:30. Do you have a preference for a 6 or 6:30? So I can, okay, I'll just check with the school district and see what they prefer. I prefer 6, but we'll see. Okay, and then just to give you a heads up, some of you may have gotten the email from our League of California Cities rep, Stephen Qualls. I don't know if this one was urgent like the other 90 he sends out every month. But this Thursday, Senator Anthony Cannella, our state senator, will be having a legislative briefings. He'll be taking questions from his elected officials and staff, and that'll be done in series at 1 p.m. And then on Friday, and I don't know the location yet, but if you're interested in attending, let me know. Our new assembly person, Adam Gray, will be addressing his constituents as well. We'll be having a meeting with him.
Here in town?
That will be in Modesto. So, and then lastly, as part of the celebration, the 125-year celebration, again, that we're trying to kick off and do something, try to do it all year long. We expect in the first week of April, we're going to get new banners that are going to be hung in the downtown. One banner will face one way, and then on the back side will be completely different, but I have a mock-up for you guys to take a look here. So these are the mock-ups that the planning, Founders Day Planning Commission has looked. This is the old original depot that was here in downtown, and then this is the train that used to come through the downtown. These was an actual picture. We were able to take the image off of and put it on there. And then so these will be hanging in the downtown for most of the year. One side will be this one, on the back side will be this, and then across the street they'll be reversed. So you actually, as you're going down, you'll see them on opposite sides of the roads each time. So we're hoping to have these delivered to us, and probably that first week of April, and start getting them up. Just a reminder, it's April 26th through the 28th is the Founders Day celebration. The celebration will start on Friday evening, late afternoon in the plaza. We'll have family-oriented events and activities in both Pioneer Park and Densmore Park on Saturday. And then on Sunday, the events will be focused in on Pioneer Park. Our city council has graciously agreed to do a barbecue. We will have members of the Newman family on board, and then we'll do a recreation of when Simon Newman was auctioning off land, but this time I think we're going to auction off pictures of historic buildings throughout the community. So, and we're going to keep moving this forward. We still have a couple more months to plan this, so anybody is welcome to attend these meetings. Again, it'll be tomorrow evening. They'll always be on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month at 6 p.m. in our council chambers. So anybody who just wants to volunteer for a day, or we do have some games that we're trying to create. So if we have anybody who's handy with wood, can maybe help us do some woodworking and do prepping for some of those games, it'd be greatly appreciated. And that's all I had, Mayor.
Questions, comments, Michael? You know, it was interesting. I was doing some interviews at the county library in Merced a couple weeks ago. And Mary, maybe you're aware of this. Have you ever heard the book of Dogtown and Ditches? You have? Have you read that? Yeah. Do you have? It was so cool. I didn't realize that Gustine was started in spite of Newman. Did you know that?
Yes, Gustine's quite a lot older, well, younger than Newman. It wasn't even incorporated.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because it was like on September 29th of '06, apparently Simon Newman snubbed Henry Miller. They got in a little tiff, so he built his own town, Gustine. According to the book. It must be true, right? It's printed.
It's on the internet.
It was interesting. I read the story, and it was like two kids battling with one another, and Henry Miller got mad at Simon Newman, so he started his own town. I thought it was kind of interesting, but
Mayor, a lot of our staff is doing, we're doing a book, 125-year celebration book, and that mirrors some of the stories and research that our
I
staff
think
has
that
found.
book would be great to have on hand. I was going to ask Walter about that if he knew that his great-grandfather snubbed Henry Miller.
I haven't seen that book in quite quite some time. So I don't know if Justine has it, if the museum down there has it for sale or not.
Yeah.
I know we don't have it
A
for sale.
gentleman by the name of Wayne Pimentel wrote the book, and I started reading it. I thought it was pretty fascinating, so I almost stole it to bring it so we could share. Okay, staff. Lieutenant Short, anything?
One thing for you tonight, the second phase of the Office of Traffic Safety's Distracted Driver campaign kicked off yesterday. This will be a 14-day run from Newman to Sacramento, and basically just a Sacramento market. Anywhere that the news comes from Sacramento that you get, expect distracted driver enforcement there. If you use your cell phone, use a hands-free device. There's no warnings. Tickets will be on hand. That's all I have for you tonight.
Nice little send-off. Thank you.
Yes.
Lou?
Nothing tonight.
Garner?
I just have a couple items for you. We have been going around and planting the last of the trees that we had with our tree grant that we had last year. I think we'll be finishing those up by the end of next week. I think we had 26 more trees left to plant, so staff's been going around getting those planted. In addition to that, we're gearing up and doing more sidewalk repairs now that the weather's getting a little nicer. We're going to be going around Pioneer Park, Densmore, the Memorial Building, and other areas that have been identified. So you'll see them out and about jackhammering and then repouring concrete. I think Thursday is a big pour coming up for sidewalks. And then the Tulare Street project is going out to bid. That consists of redoing the curb and gutter along Tulare Street between S and T Street and repairing the storm drain system in there from the localized flooding that we get in that area. That project will be out to bid starting this week and be before council hopefully in March for award of the contract.
Great.
That's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Corner of Kern and Main Street looks a lot better.
Kern and Main Street, yes, sir. The bollards are in.
Yeah, it looks nice. And the lights are brighter. I noticed.
They're slightly a little bit brighter.
Yeah,
Yes, they
it's
are.
nice.
It has to do with the different ballast that's in there.
Yeah. Thanks for getting that done. That's great. Okay, Don, we'll start with you.
Nothing tonight?
Nick? Nothing. Bob? I have nothing either. We're adjourned. Good night.